All right, so here is another new concept with rhythm, and we're going to talk about dots. Okay, so far we talked about having a note by itself. This is a whole note, and here's a whole note by itself. Now here's the same whole note with a dot next to it. The dot's always going to be on the right of the dot of the note. Okay, and that dot, okay, this guy, okay, means that we're adding half of the value of the note that it's attached to, okay, half of the rhythmic value. So for example, if you recall a whole note, okay, if you divide it in half, okay, equals 2 half notes. Right? So again, if a whole note lasts 4 seconds, it would be the same as 2 half notes at 2 seconds each. And you put them all together, it would sound the same. So that's sort of the equation here. Now, by adding that dot, I'm going to add to this whole note half of its duration. Okay, so if the whole note starts with 2 half notes, the dot means that we're adding another half note. Okay, so in this case, this dotted whole note, okay, would equal to the same rhythmic value as 3 half notes. You can do the same thing with a quarter note. So a quarter note at the moment equals 2 eighth notes, okay, because half of a quarter note is an eighth note. By adding that dot to the quarter note, okay, we're adding half of the value of the note. So that would be adding half of that, which is adding an eighth note. Okay, so again, we would start with just the quarter note equivalent, which is 2 eighth notes, and then we're adding half of the quarter note again, which is another eighth note. So a dotted quarter note would equal to 3 eighth notes. And you can do the same thing here with rests, right? I'm going to move this up a little bit. Okay, so for example, let's say I'm going to translate this to rests. A quarter rest would equal to 2 eighth rests. All right. So a dotted quarter rest would equal to 3 eighth rests. Okay. Now, here's one last concept, and we will talk more about this once we talk about measures and meter. But for now, if you see 2 notes that are the same pitch, okay, let's say we're in treble clef, and that's a C, okay, and there's a bar line or a measure line, and you have 2 notes of the same pitch on 2 measures, and they're connected with this little arch. Okay, that is called a tie, and it's only a tie when the 2 notes are of the same pitch. What that does is that we're now essentially creating one note out of these 2 notes. We're asking the singer or the flutist or the trumpet player to hold this note for not only the length of a half note, but the length of 2 half notes, right? Because they're tied together. Okay? So that's the basic concept of a tie. So these are 2 concepts of how we essentially add rhythmic value to a given note type. So we might have start with a quarter note, then we add a dot, which adds half of the value, or we can start with a quarter rest. If we added a dot, again, we add half the value. Or we can tie 2 notes together across a bar line. Okay? And that means we're asking, or as you as a composer is asking the player to not play 2 notes, but play 1 note that equals the addition of these 2 notes durations together. Okay? So take a look at this and think about this in kind of simple math terms. That's all it is.